ask the question, what's so hard about being autistic?
Yeah, what is so hard? Let's find out.
When people try to think of ways in which autistic people might have a hard time, kids in school are usually their first thought.
Man, growing up, I was so happy when I didn't have to go to school anymore. School was not fun.
Kids can be cruel, and they can imagine them shouting, "You're so autistic," as an insult. But it goes way beyond that. Adults do it too. Not just thugs and bullies, but well-educated people, cultured people, and professionals of all classes. Journalists are guilty of criticising unpopular politicians and public figures for behaving autistically or making autistic decisions. The perception that being autistic makes one less of a person is endemic in Western culture, and there's no doubt it has an impact on all autists, with or without a diagnosis. I mentioned in the introduction that autistic people share experiences of discrimination even before we get a diagnosis. How does that come about? Autistic brains are built differently. Among other things, it's common for us to have senses that are more or less receptive than the average. It can mean we're sensitive to things others can't perceive, but we may also miss some things that other people are aware of. There's more about autistic senses in the video linked above. When we're kids, our peers call us names when we don't notice things they do. Teachers often back up that derision by doubting our sincerity when we protest. The common assumption that we all sense the world in the same way unless we're diagnosed as, say, deaf or blind, creates barriers that can shape a child's life forever. No amount of pointing out what we missed can make it any more apparent. Our senses simply don't always pick up the same things as others. What about the times we sense things others are unaware of? We get accused of imagining things. They call us fantasists or daydreamers at best, or delusional liars at worst. If our sense of taste and texture limits our diets, we're told we're picky eaters. If we can't wear the clothes we're asked to, or
So, one thing I understood later. When I was a kid, I used to get really weirded out by looking at butter or stuff like ghee, oil, you know, that kind of stuff. Stuff that's all gooey and shit, jam, marmalade. The moment I saw that, I'd want to throw up. Right? Now, I ain't got that problem no more. Eventually, you learn what's the importance of food and why you're eating it. Then you can eat, healthy. So now, I'm averse to most processed foods, like biscuits and soda, chewing gum, candy bars. I still like chocolate, but I want the chocolate to be nice. I want some real vegetables chopped up and put in a sandwich. Not some other shit, which is fake. But when I was a kid, I was really picky. And certain food created this reaction in me just by looking at it.
sit with the others on the scratchy carpet, we're making a fuss over nothing. This becomes even more pronounced in adulthood for those of us who sense things others are oblivious to. Like those who can hear the hum of electrical resistance, or the many different varieties of synesthesia. We're told we're either making it up.
I've always preferred computer monitors to TV screens. The TV screen gives off some kind of vibration. It messes with my head. You know what? I feel mess with everyone's head, but they ain't realize. If you watch a video on a computer. It don't have this weird quality where you don't really feel like doing anything else, and you also kind of feel like this brain fog coming on. You still got you got your faculties, but something about a TV screen, you could be watching the same content on the TV screen. The TV screen will be, I don't know, man. It's got this effect, and I think it's a frequency that it's not real. It's not imperceptible. It's not directly perceptible, but you feel the effect. I don't know, man. I don't like
or
TV.
Dismissed as freaks. How about communication? Communication is listed as a deficit on pretty much every description of autism you'll find. But is it that simple? Autistic communication is different to neurotypical communication, especially in the West. But how much it differs varies across cultures. A culture that favours direct, information-rich expression will be far less alienating to an autist than one which relies on hints, shared understandings, and reading between the lines. You know that cliche?
That's why I use this voice in my YouTube videos. Because, see, autistic people, we need to mask, right? Because we need to figure out how to function in this world. And this the kind of voice that lets you tell it like it is. But it gives you time to formulate the voice and formulate what it is in a more grounded sense, instead of just being talking like a robot. And yeah, in the world they don't like when you're a robot, and nowadays, especially on social media, there's a lot of, like he's saying, hints and subtle shit, subtle communication, and that just be fucking up the mind of the autistic. That's some of my thoughts on that.
Of the English-speaking tourist trying to order in a restaurant. They don't know the language, and when the waiter doesn't understand their order, they just repeat themselves in English, ever louder and more slowly, whilst the waiter is none the wiser. Being an autist in a neurotypical world can feel like being that waiter. Almost everyone we deal with expects us to understand their language, and they repeat themselves or shout when we don't understand. That is, if they don't start talking to us as if we were young children, or just give up altogether.
And those people be dumb as fuck, too. The ones who act like you don't understand, but it's like, nah, I understand you. But you saying some shit that you don't even realize don't make sense. And you don't understand what I'm saying either. So I don't know what to say to you to make you understand.
We're treated as ignorant for not understanding the hints people think are implicit behind what they say, or naive for taking what they say at face value. We're told it's our fault for not understanding the hidden message behind words that actually say something completely different.
I feel this shit with the slang. Slang words change every couple of years now, and they're getting more and more ridiculous. Right? That's why I be trying to just type shit in plain English nowadays. And maybe use the classics, like dope. That's dope. You know, that's cool. I don't know all these new words. And everything, there's this guy who used to use the word hectic to mean something is cool. Like, yo, that's hectic, man. But I'm like, that just means it's hectic. Why is that a good thing? Weird shit like that.
Communication style, which is often direct, honest, and thorough, gets dismissed as boring or even aggressive. We find ourselves in conflict because people have inserted their own hidden intent behind our words, which was never there. They incorrectly read meaning into our words because they're used to other people doing it. Honest compliments are received as sarcasm, and pleas for help are ignored because we use logic instead of emotional triggers. If you live your life being constantly misunderstood, sometimes with unpleasant, even threatening consequences, you might start to feel some resentment towards those who don't make the effort to understand your communication style. Let's look back to school again. I've lost
Oh, damn.
count of the times I've been told of childhood bullying, not only from pupils but by teachers too. There are many different learning styles, the optimum ways in which we absorb information or new skills, but few are accommodated. Rote learning is usually the only method available. Information is delivered to us in a classroom or read from a book, then regurgitated in the form of written work. Autistic people aren't the only ones who don't learn well under such conditions, but there's very little variation in the style of teaching in schools, or in later life, in the courses our employers send us on. I know autistic people with excellent qualifications who've done very well in their chosen disciplines. Even they often describe the process of gaining those qualifications as being a struggle within a system that made their learning more difficult than it should be. Sadly, they are way outnumbered by those who have the intelligence and the skill to have done the same, but were terrorised out of education before their time by a system which denies us the opportunity to learn properly. The frustration of intelligent, talented people being
There comes a time when you're autistic and you're in high school or something. If you got decent kids around, that's good. But if you got like a bad batch of classmates, it becomes impossible to focus because they're always picking on you. And because of that, my grades weren't too good when I was graduating high school. And looking back, I should have probably gone into the science stream, you know, engineering, software, that kind of shit, computer science. But I was like, damn, it's so difficult for me to actually focus on this shit. Everywhere I go, people are so difficult to deal with and take so much of my energy. I need to go and do something really chill, like something which doesn't expect that much from me but gives me the freedom to do stuff my way. So I picked graphic design. And it was a good choice. I mean, I like graphic design, but not as much as I like coding and making stuff that lets people do graphic design. I think that's on another level. And I feel robbed of that because of school. Not so much the school teachers, but just kids in the schools. We need more discipline in schools, man. Whole lot more discipline. And I ain't talking about like hitting kids, man. That's bad. Nah. But I'm saying you gotta make sure that kids ain't messing up other kids. That's what I'm saying. These kids be messing up other kids. And it's a real problem. And it's gonna get worse because the media they on now way more brutal than the media that we was on. And everybody should really realize that. Shit. People like 5 years younger than me on some way more brutal shit. It's just the way of the world. It's getting more brutal every day. So what we gonna do about it?
stuck in jobs that are way below their ability, watching less capable but more popular or unscrupulous people leapfrog over them is heartbreaking. Even more so is that of those who cannot get any work because throughout life they've been told that their face doesn't fit. Many's the time I've met an autist who has struggled through an antagonistic education system to become very well qualified, sometimes in multiple disciplines, who still can't hold down a job because they're judged as a poor fit. Autists regularly get fired for not being a team player because we do our best work alone, or we find it almost impossible to work in communal environments. Interviews are rigged against us if we're uncomfortable with eye contact. Our answers to silly questions like, "Tell me about yourself," are honest rather than cherry-picked, or our unconscious stims are misinterpreted as fidgeting because of nerves or dishonesty. If I were to list all the disadvantages autistic people have to live with even without a diagnosis, this film could last for hours. The way our society treats people who sense, think and express themselves differently to the socially accepted cultural norm is nothing short of appalling. Society shuns anyone who doesn't fit its narrow view of normal. The knee-jerk reaction is to marginalise, ostracise and often victimise anyone that doesn't fit the mould.
Anyway, man, this video is pretty deep. And I'm halfway through the video. But I'm gonna leave it here because it's already been 24 minutes, 24.75 minutes. So it's almost gonna be 25 now. Hold on. It's about to be 25 minutes. So I think that's long enough for now. But yeah, man, if you're autistic like me, it's alright. We just gotta work together.